Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday evening to you all. Hope you guys have had a great day out there and having a great week so far. I got you a big update tonight. Some things have kind of changed as far as this system we've been trying to figure out with what's going to happen. I was talking last night about how there wasn't going to be much winter weather with this. Well, I also mentioned the fact that we could have some kind of cutoff low, upper level low that could bring snow for parts of Texas. This has since increased in confidence that this is going to happen, actually to the point where we might just have a downright snowstorm in areas of the panhandle of Texas and western Texas. So we need to break that down because this actually can be very significant for, an area of Texas is probably not as highly populated, but it still can be very impactful for some communities out there, including Amarillo and areas like the panhandle of Oklahoma. Some models like the idea of a foot and a half of snow. It's an interesting setup, and we know enough now what could potentially happen and what's really driving this. So we're going to break that down for you guys in the beginning part of the video. We're going to talk about the winter weather side, but this system is also going to bring a lot of rain from Texas, eastern Texas, potentially all the way up to the mid-Atlantic and northeast. So it's going to be some impactful weather from Thanksgiving through the rest of the weekend. I'm not really talking much in the way of severe weather. That could change, but it's going to be a soggy weekend for a lot of folks. So we're going to try to figure this out for you guys with this upper level low, cutoff low, kind of low pressure here. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It goes a long way, and I really appreciate you guys' continued support. It's been a really a great month, honestly. It's kind of like been a sneaky good month. Really, I wasn't expecting a lot of growth this month, and really there really hasn't been any huge topics to really talk about, but you guys have been tuning in, so I really appreciate the support. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives a lot of other people the opportunity to do so too. And everybody certainly does it in the comments. I see it every morning when I wake up, and it's always really awesome to see. So let's get rolling. There's probably a 90% to 100% chance you're going to hear a kid in the background yell. So if that happens, you guys know I have kids, and it just happens every once in a while, and there it goes right there. So watches and warnings out there. There's nothing really going on. There's no winter storm watches up for the panhandle of Texas, anything like that. And it's because there's just not high confidence on what's going to potentially fall. We don't have any flood watches out there or anything like that, but I really think some things could change between now and the next 24 hours. I really do. This is a changing situation, and the system just looks more dynamic than it did 24 hours ago. But it is still entering the Pacific Northwest, where it will actually be sampled by the National Weather Services up there in the Northwest, and we will basically bring in a lot better model information. So we're going to take a look at the European, the GFS, and I know I don't have a ton of viewers out here in Texas, but it's stay tuned for me, even if you live in the Southeast or somewhere elsewhere, because this is a really interesting setup. And honestly, this information I'm about to share with you guys could ooze kind of into winter, as it will help try to figure out why it snows, why it sleets, why we get freezing rain. And a lot of it depends on temperatures in the upper levels of the atmosphere. A lot of people just think that, hey, it's 30 degrees outside. Why is it sleeting? Shouldn't it be snowing? So much depends on what happens above our heads and not just what we feel at the surface. There's so much more that goes into it. That's why, these meteorologists out there get jammed up so bad about how they suck at their job and all this rigmarole. But guys, there's always just so much more that goes into it. So let's check out the European on what happens. The European is an incredible, potentially historic run for areas of the panhandle. Here we go. This energy drops down from the northern stream. I'll talk about that here in a second. And then it just turns into a cutoff low. An upper level low kind of goes into a cutoff low. And what happens here is, let's back it up, getting into Thanksgiving afternoon. Snow starts to break out over southwest areas of Kansas, the panhandle of Oklahoma, New Mexico, and getting into the panhandle areas of Texas. The moisture with cutoff lows and upper level lows can be incredible. It can be very heavy. Sometimes you get thunder snow out of it. Sometimes you get just heavy precipitation. So a lot of snow could fall really not in a short amount of time, but a relatively short amount of time in the panhandle of Texas. And here we go. We stopped this around the wee hours of the morning, Black Friday morning for your Friday. This Friday. I'm not talking about next Friday. This Friday. This is well under 80 hours at this point. and it is pouring snowing on Amarillo. If you got any Black Friday shopping you need to do in Amarillo, chances are it could be snowing. And really, the positioning of this band or area of snow, the Euro likes it more so into New Mexico and areas of just western and southern areas, southwest areas of the panhandle of Texas. But look at you got some blue showing up down here. You see this 540 line? That is basically temperatures above our heads. And it's saying that there's a pocket of sub-freezing temperatures above our heads. Maybe not at the surface, but above our heads. We'll talk about that here in a second. So it's snowing in these areas. It's raining in this part of Texas. Could be a chilly rain, and it's still snowing. We're getting into Friday afternoon. Still this band of heavy snow in New Mexico, areas of the panhandle of Texas. This continues. It's still snowing into Saturday morning. So maybe I had to back up and pump with my phrase of saying this is a short amount of time. With the spinning, what happens with cutoff lows is they get lost. So they just kind of meander, they spin around, and they keep dumping precipitation on same areas. That's why a lot of times you get flooding with cutoff lows, because they just spin in one spot. And in this case, you're going to have enough cold air, barely. When I tell you barely, I mean you got marginal cold air to just dump heavy paste-like snow. And it's still snowing. You still got a little bit of snow as we're getting into Saturday afternoon. Finally, the low pressure right here you see bringing its own little literal pocket of cold air aloft. Aloft meaning above our heads, like 5, 6, 7,000 feet up in the air, and then it moves on out of here. GFS does kind of the same thing as the latest GFS. Snow breaks out in the panhandle later Thanksgiving evening. So by the time you're eating your turkey out there in the panhandle of Texas, Oklahoma, you could be seeing snow falling. So, I mean, this is the holiday before Christmas, Thanksgiving. So, I mean, it's you get snow in Texas, certainly in November, but, you know, it's pretty wild that certain areas could have a white Thanksgiving, not Christmas, Thanksgiving. And same thing with the GFS. The snow gets very heavy. One thing with the GFS, though, is it doesn't really pull any snow into New Mexico. Certainly not heavy snow, barely hardly any. And then it wants to drop this area of snow further south. And almost a little bit further east, not east to the point where it gets into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Oklahoma City, but it certainly gets it semi-close. So you got this area right down here getting snow now, pretty south of Amarillo in this section right here of Texas. And then we're getting into Saturday morning, this pulls away. Same thing with the Euro. So what's going on here, and we'll briefly talk about this. You got this piece of energy that drops down here. And it fully, at this point, it's an upper level low. You see how this line is just digging like this? It's like an upper trough. And then all of a sudden, these bars right here, they close off. That means it starts to get cut off or pinched off from the main stream of energy up here. And when this happens here, it almost gets trapped under a ridge. So it gets fully lost in the flow right here. And at the same time, there's enough cold air at the surface and aloft to just pump a little cold air into Texas and enough for it to be a wet snowstorm. And notice how it just spins away, and then finally it heads on out. We're getting into late this weekend, and then we're done with it. But what are we left with? The Euro, guys, wants to drop 1.5 feet of snow. This is one run on Amarillo. Just south, 2 feet of snow, guys. It's a lot of snow. You even got this little area showing up way down here. It's very interesting. Cutoff lows are very unpredictable. For you folks watching in South Carolina, November 1st, 2014, this happened in my neck of the woods. We had this ridiculous isolated snow event that happened. I mean, the leaves hadn't even changed on the trees yet, and it was because of this literal 30 to 40 mile pocket of cold air aloft that swung through the mountains, swung through South Carolina, and there was enough dynamics there to drop heavy snow at around 35 degrees. And it dropped like 5-6 inches of snow just outside of my hometown of Columbia in Lexington, South Carolina on November 1st. Look it up if you're interested. It was a fascinating event. But that's what these cutoff lows do, these little upper level lows. The GFS shows a lot of snow also, but it's a little bit further south. You don't have 1.5 feet of snow showing up in Amarillo, more so maybe 0.5 foot. And just a little bit further south. So, you know, you look at the NAM. The NAM's coming in now. NAM shows snow breaking out as early as late Thanksgiving evening, snow, heavy snow at this. I'm telling you, the snow can be very heavy. It's still snowing in the Friday afternoon, and then it only goes out as far out as in the middle of the night, Friday night into Saturday, and you still got a heavy band of snow. How much snow does the NAM drop? Just the 12 km NAM? A widespread 6 to maybe as much as 14, 15-inch totals, Amarillo included. And you know, in New Mexico, we're not going to leave you guys out. It's a tricky situation, it is, but it almost looks like Amarillo's kind of, in the kind of surrounding counties and towns surrounding Amarillo, it almost looks like you guys are going to be the epicenter, at least having the highest chance of getting something. Are you going to get a foot of snow? Man, it's hard to say, but I think several inches of snow is almost likely, or growing very possible. Now, the thing that's going to change with this is the epicenter of the heaviest snow. It could pivot south, it could pivot west, maybe east. As far east as Dallas or Oklahoma City, I highly doubt it. But the NAM brings a lot of heavy snow into areas of western Oklahoma. Something we need to watch. Now, the national blend of all models, I think, is a very reasonable solution right now. Wants to drop 4 to 6 inches of snow on Amarillo and likes the epicenter being right here in the panhandle of Texas. I think this is very reasonable, but we need to see if this increases. This is still a significant winter storm for a relatively small area of just an isolated area. But whoever's driving through this section and, you know, the interstates that run through this area, forgive me for not knowing the actual interstate. I feel like it's like 40 or something, I think, that runs through this area. If you just happen to be not knowing what's going on, you just might run into a snowstorm for a few hours. I mean, it's a weird event. It really is. So we're watching this, guys, and we'll continue to keep you guys updated. For anybody watching up here, I would love to know if there's anybody in the panhandle of Texas, Oklahoma, and just western Texas in general that views from that area. That would make my night. It really would, just to hear people, you know, from that area. But if you're wondering what's driving this is temperatures in Celsius at 850 millibars. That is 5,000 feet up in the air, almost around a mile up in the air. Above our heads, right? We look at this for low-level jets in severe weather season, but, you know, you see these 8.7s, that's not in Fahrenheit. This is in Celsius. So once you get to 0 degrees Celsius, that's 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So I think tomorrow night we'll break down what these soundings mean. But just know that at the surface, guys, it could be 35, 36 degrees. And then temperatures can drop the higher up you go. So say there's no warm nose of air above your heads. It just gets colder and colder. In a lot of cases, that's not the case. That is not the case. But in a situation like this, cutoff lows bring their own cold air. So you see this -2, -1, that is a few to almost several degrees below freezing, 5,000 feet up in the air. And then it gets colder after that. So it can be 35, 36 degrees and 30, 29 degrees, you know, 5,000 feet up in the air, and then maybe 25 degrees, even higher than that. So precipitation falls through the column of cold air, and it's cold enough for snow, and it doesn't hit a warm enough area until it gets all the way to the surface. Therefore, these snowflakes don't have time to melt into sleet or anything like that. So therefore, you get a very wet, clumpy snow falling. And then eventually, it could snow so hard that it actually crashes the temperatures down to freezing. It happens a lot. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. It doesn't always matter what the temperatures are at the surface. It matters almost just as much what's going on in the upper levels of the atmosphere. It really does. It means a lot, especially when you have a low pressure off the coast of the southeast and you're looking at a warm nose in the eastern U.S. That means a lot. So next thing we'll talk about, not to forget, is after this develops, brings that snow we just talked about, low pressure, a regular just low pressure, quickly races off and it starts dropping heavy rain as early as Thursday midday across eastern Texas. It's moving through Arkansas, Missouri. We're getting into Thanksgiving evening. Heavy rain, even heavier rain begins to develop. Louisiana, southern sections of Arkansas. We're getting into Friday morning. This heavy rain begins to potentially move into Mississippi, northern Alabama, Tennessee, And then we're getting into a Friday afternoon, Friday evening. Area of rain begins to move into Virginia. And this is just the first round. You even got precipitation all the way up into Maine. So I'll stop it right here and we'll look at this for Friday evening, which is, a day some people start heading back home. There's rain or snow from Texas all the way up to Maine. So, if you do not like driving in the rain, it's going to be a struggle. You might just want to sit tight the rest of the weekend, enjoy time with family. But then, after this rain clears out, you got the upper level low or cutoff low that begins to pivot through the Ohio Valley and the Mississippi Valley. And this brings rain, more rain to the Ohio Valley, southeast. And we got to watch for a severe weather threat down here. We'll talk more on that when we know. Maybe the later half of the weekend might bring certainly some rain for areas and some severe weather for areas of the south. And then it moves on out. So how much rain could we expect? Well, we'll stop it right here. This is already how much we see between Thanksgiving and Friday morning. Several inches of rain possible, anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 inches of rain from East Texas, northern half of Louisiana, Mississippi, southern Arkansas. This continues. And through the entire event, going all the way out through about Sunday evening, a lot. This is, 2 to 3 inches of rain in Dallas, Shreveport, 3 inches, Little Rock, a few inches. Memphis, same thing. Jackson, Mississippi, a few inches of rain. So we go on and look to the east. What does it look to? The eastern U.S.? And a lot of rain is possible. Not as much. Basically, the further west you get into the deep south, the more rain you get. I mean, just widespread 2 to 4 inch totals in Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and Arkansas. But once you get into the Carolinas, the mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, it gets a little bit more trickier, and I think rainfall just in general goes down. But still just a more widespread event for these sections. So, tricky setup, guys, especially for the snow. Very interesting setup. Fascinating to watch this, even if it's not doing it at your own house. But it's going to be a messy weekend. It is. It's going to be a soggy, cloudy. If it's not raining, it will be cloudy. For Texas, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, potentially up to Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and then points east. It really is. So go on and expect that. It's not, unfortunately, is not going to be a nice weekend. This is for Saturday, big rivalry weekend for college football. It certainly is going to potentially be very messy and rainy for certain areas. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and have yourselves a great night.